Hey guys, Unit 13, Day 3.
Last day, guys.
That's it. We're going to reverse foil, or we call it unfoiling. So this is our second method of factoring. The first day we did pulling out the GCF.
Yep.
And then the second method is to unfoil. And like I said earlier, you're going to do the third method next year in algebra with Michel Lejean. So we are going to unfoil today. Alright, so really we're going to work backwards from what we did in day one when we were foiling two binomials and we got a result of a trinomial. Today we're going to give you a trinomial and we're going to factor it using this method we call unfoil.
Okay.
Alright.
Alright, guys. So, we're trying to teach you, certain questions that you're going to have to ask yourself when you're going to factor out using unfoiling. So let's take a look at practice problem number 2. We need to think of two numbers that have a product. In other words, they're going to multiply together to give you 20, but when I add them up, are going to give me 9. Alright, so this is where we stress on how you need to know your math facts, alright? So I'm thinking off the top of my head, the two products that multiply together to get me 20, I got 1 and 20, 4 and 5, 2 and 10, but the ones that add up to 9 are going to be 4 times 5. I got to use those two numbers, alright? So that's where we got to start thinking.
Yeah, some mental math there. 4 times 5 is 20, 4 plus 5 is 9. So a lot of unfoiling has to do with using some mental math. So let's just skip down here. Let's try number 3. It says, what two numbers have a product of negative 8, which means the two numbers have to multiply to a negative 8, but they have to add up to a positive 2. So when we multiply to a negative, we know the signs have to be different for the two numbers. So we want one positive number, and we want one negative number. Also, they have to add up to a positive 2, so we want the bigger number to be positive. So when we choose our two numbers, the larger number needs to be a positive number because they add to a 2. So 4 and negative 2, if I multiply 4 times a negative 2, that would give me a negative 8. And if I added 4 plus a negative 2, that would give me a positive 2. So those are the two numbers that we need to come up with.
Alright, guys, so where is this all leading you? Look at practice problem number 11. Alright, I have x squared plus 6x plus 8. I always start mine off with, I'm going to automatically put my two parentheses, because I know I need to multiply two binomials, alright, together in order to get my trinomial. For the most part, in 8th grade, they're always going to start with x. So I'm going to put my x in parentheses. Now what I need to figure out is, just like with the questions that we were asking earlier, what two numbers can I multiply together to get 8, my last number, but when I add up is going to give me that positive 6. Alright, well, going through my factors of 8, I got, 1 and 8, 2 and 4, that's it, right? So for here, I'm thinking I'm going to have to multiply 2 times 4 in order to get my 8, but when I add them up, it's also going to give me my 6x.
So notice whenever we have a positive and a positive here, whenever these are both positive, those are the easiest ones to work with because they're both positives. We know two positives will give us a positive when we multiply and when we add, so we know both of our binomials will have plus signs in the middle. One thing you could do is, if you're not real confident in factoring, you could foil these. And I know a lot of you guys are doing a really good job with foiling, whether you're using the FOIL method or the box method. You could box method this x plus 2 and x plus 4, and when you're done, you should end up with x squared plus 6x plus 8. That's what we're doing. We're working backwards. Alright, so let's try another one here. Let's not do a positive one. Let's try number
15?
15 looks good. Alright, so we're going to start off with the parentheses again. Every time. We know that x times x gives us x squared, so x is how we're going to start this. The next thing that I look at when I'm doing this is I need to multiply to a positive 32. So I know my signs have to be the same. They're either both going to be positives or they're both going to be negatives. And then I look at the middle sign. And when I add these two numbers up, they have to add up to a negative 12. Well, the only way that's possible is if both my signs are negatives. If they're both positives, they add up to a positive. So two negatives will result in a positive when I multiply, and two negatives will result in a negative when I add. So now I'm thinking, what multiplies to give me 32? I've got 1 and 32, but I know negative 1 and negative 32 is not going to give me negative 12. 4 and 8 will work. So if I have a 4 and an 8 here, if I multiply negative 4 and negative 8, that gives me positive 32. And when I add negative 4 and negative 8, it gives me a negative 12. So when I would go through and box method that or FOIL it, I would get that x squared minus 12x plus 32.
Yep. All right, guys. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do number 17. All right. So once again, I always start off putting down my parentheses, and we're always starting off with x. Okay. And I like how Mr. G put that. I look at my last number right here. This tells me whether or not it's going to be positive positive, positive negative, or negative negative. Since I know that I'm ending up with a negative answer, my signs have to be different. So automatically, I'm going to put a plus here and a minus here. All right. Then I need to determine, well, which number has to be bigger. Since when I add them up, I'm going to end up with a positive 4. My bigger number better end up being a positive. So let's think about those factors of negative 12. Let's say I got 1 and 12. Well, when I combine them, it's going to give me 11, either positive 11 or negative 11. But I do know that 2 and 6 are going to give me 12. All right, and then when I combine them, it's going to end up giving me a positive 4. So I got to make sure my bigger number is positive, right? Because when I combine that, let's face it, a positive 6 and a negative 2, well, hey, that's going to give me my positive 4. And that's how you unfold it.
One more?
One more, the negative negative,
Let's
I think.
do one more negative negative.
Let's not break my iPad, that'd be great.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Number 19 here. Again, we're going to start it off with our parentheses. We're going to go with our x and our x for now. We might throw some curveballs at you later in the enrichment, but right now we're going to go with multiplying to x squared. Now, again, we're multiplying to a negative 21 here. So Mr. Wells just said multiplying to a negative signs have to be different. We're going to go with a plus and a minus. We also notice that our middle term, when we add up our x's, is going to be negative. So our bigger number needs to go here with the minus sign. And we're multiplying to 21. The first thing that comes to mind is 7 and 3 for me. 7 and 3. And if I add these up, a positive 3 and my negative 7 gives me my negative 4. And my positive 3 and my negative 7 will multiply to a negative 21. So I know that I have it right. So that's unfoiling. Takes some practice. Some mental math. Got to be good with your math facts.
You got to know your math facts, yep.
So let's practice. Here we go.